Hey, peace and blessings, family. Happy Sunday, and welcome to Sunday Sitting with Sisters. I am Rolanda Wilkins, and Sister Dana, I'm not sure if she's going to be here today, but I'm here today. And I've been traveling, so I just got back home last night from being on the East Coast, and I was on a special journey there. I was basically going to see my great-grandmother, who was born in 1818 or 1817. That's what the headstone said, but died in 1920. And so I was going there to see them, her, my great-grandmother, who died in 1942, and then my grandmother's son, who died when he was 5.5 months of pneumonia, all buried in the same place. So I went there to take pictures, to make sure they had headstones. I also went to go see my grandmother, my mom's mother, who died when she was 52 in 1962. All these twos, huh? And so it was great. And I went to go check out a bunch of other stuff, and also met with a few people, because what I'm trying to do now is to do this initiative to basically work with Black women around the country to do small cohorts that will work with other Black girls for like 6 months period of time. So it's kind of like you get to follow these young ladies and work with them hopefully for longer than that. But when I look at the strength and what's going on with Black girls and women, I feel like we have to have another plan that the community can be involved in, not necessarily those of us who are trained or who do this as a business, but really trying to figure out, how we can help Black girls and women be strong and healthy. Because if they're strong and healthy, that means that we get to be strong and healthy. And so that's what I was doing here on Sunday Sit with Sisters. And what I want to do, I probably won't be too long today, but I want to be strong today, as I try to do every day. And I hope that you all will share. I want to share with you some women in history. We're going to go over that in a little bit, who have done very extraordinary things, because then next week when we come back on, I'm going to share with you some young sisters who are doing that amazing work today, but maybe in a different kind of way, but it is still in that same tradition and that same line of work. And so I know we all must know women in our family that are great, and I don't think of great as, let me be very clear. Sometimes great is not always about you competing with white people or somehow you're just as better than. Sometimes for me, being great means you take care of your family, you take care of your community, you try to make sure we're all okay. Like that's what that means for me. It's not always like, oh my God, I got 20 degrees, or oh my God, I was able to be up there with the whitest of the white people. Like that's not what I'm talking about, y'all. I think it is great when we take care of each other. I think it is, you become a great person when you open up doors for people, and without them even knowing that you have, when you're standing up and trying to do what's right, not what's popular, not what people are going to like, but what's right. And so for me, as I'm always a student of history, I always try to look for that for the women in my line. Like when I think about my mother is my greatest example of what it means to have pride and dignity and respect, and to sacrifice for days you will never see. And so, that's my mom. My mom went to like the 10th grade, but when you look at her children, you'd have thought she had like a doctorate in something, if you want to measure it in that way. But I feel like we got to keep celebrating each other, and we have to make a way for our girls to be great and to be comfortable in who they are, for them to love their skin, love their bodies, to love themselves. We got to make a way for them to do that. So last week, my dear sister, young sister Takara Johnson, started off with the first cohort. It's like between 5 and 10 girls you'll be working with for a period of time. And so even though they're learning all of these wonderful things around entrepreneurship and education and all of that great stuff, they're also learning about how to take care of themselves. They're doing yoga, they're doing meditation, they're learning how to connect with each other. They're doing a lot of writing exercises. They get to meet and talk with a lot of very powerful women and men, even though we're woman-centered, we know that men are a part of that universe. You see what I'm saying? We also talk to them about the interactions with each other, with their society, their communities, their sisters, their brothers, like all of that, making sure that they have some kind of ideal or some kind of measuring stick when they're talking about the men in their lives, the women in their lives, children and all of that. Because the more I work with young people, the more I begin to understand even clear that the way we support other people who come out or decide who they want to be, we have to support those Black girls who are just who they are, So we have to make sure that they feel good about themselves, that they feel okay with themselves. And so we really got to do that. And so today I want to share with you, I'm going to go over this list, but I'm going to jump around on the list because there's some people that I just think people should know. And these are also young folks that we share with the young girls in this program. You know what I mean? And one of the first ones at the top of the list for me is dear sister Shirley Chisholm. So if you don't know who Shirley Chisholm is, she was born in 1924. My grandmother on my dad's side was born in 1924, and she's 94 years old right now. But Shirley Chisholm was born in 1924. She died in 2005. And if you don't know who she is, she broke major barriers when it comes to the first Black Congresswoman in 1968. Which is really, really awesome about who she is. She also continued her political track when she ran for president 4 years later, making her the first major party Black candidate to run. Like she's the first Black, candidate, period, to run for, I think it was the Democratic ticket. And so here we are now. And Shirley Chisholm was a Black woman, like undeniably a Black woman. And also, I think she had Caribbean heritage. I can't remember from where she's from, but I know she's also from the Caribbean, hailing from Brooklyn, I believe. And so that's someone that we need to make sure our daughters know who she is, and that really helps them to feel balanced and feel good about themselves. Because it's always about the images that you see, the images, y'all. The next person is Sister Claudette Colvin. And let me tell you why she's so important. Because most times, we have to be very honest, in Black culture, we have something called colorism. Let's be honest. And it don't make people feel better to say, well, it's an offshoot of racism. Don't nobody really care about that. It's like, if we know we're doing something that we know is detrimental to ourselves, then we must change it. We must change it. We can't be blaming everything on white people. If we know that it's wrong, then we should basically change that. Like we should not be doing it. You know what I'm saying? So anyway. Okay, I get what you're saying, sis. And let me just share some of y'all comments. So in this case, y'all didn't know, I'm training a young sister to help me produce these shows. And so she's right here. So sometimes you may see me veer off a little bit to the left, only because I may be giving her instructions. So no worry. So this is what I think is so important, is that for some reason, we sometimes don't recognize you unless you look a certain way, unless you have certain credentials. And I'm going to just be very honest. For me in this time, I don't even think all of that is important. The most bravest acts I've ever seen were people who were not even on the radar, to be very honest with you. But this sister, several months before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus, this at the time was a young 15-year-old sister who, got arrested for resisting, she wanted to sit on the bus, or, she wanted to sit where she wanted to sit, basically. And this was in Montgomery, Alabama. And let me just stop and say that if you ever go to Montgomery, Alabama, you need to go to the Lynching Memorial or the Peace and Justice, it's an initiative, but they have a legacy museum. And if you don't know anything about Montgomery, Alabama, in its heyday, it basically was, very much rich in money, because they had like a slave holding where they basically it was like a slave holding Wall Street, if you will, where they broker and enslaved and sold Black people, basically. And this was during what they called the second enslavement of people, when they basically had domestic slavery, like when they stopped bringing enslaved people from Africa, and they had to baker and broke the enslaved descendants they had here. So that's where she did this at. Now, to me, that's super brave. Because if you know anything about Montgomery, Alabama, she had to really have some real strength and some real balls to do something like that. And so she served as one of 4 plaintiffs in this case, Brower versus Gale, who ruled that Montgomery's segregating bus system was unconstitutional. But I want you to look at this sister's face, Claudette Coleman, and this is a sister who, she's an ordinary person, 15-year-old girl on the bus. She didn't have the NAACP behind her. She didn't have any of that. She basically, she didn't have any of that. And so I think sometimes we have to really remember you know, when people do these kind of acts, we really, really, really have to remember who they are. And sometimes we really don't do that at all. So I would hope that you would, we're going to share the link to where I got these from. It's a whole bunch. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to share some of them because I just think it's important. The next person is Ida B. Wells. Now, look, y'all, she was born in 1862. So that was like maybe about 3 years or so before slavery was over, or at least, you know, the Civil War was over. You can take that down so that way they can see her face. So basically, when I'm in Chicago on the road trip, we take young women to see her. We take her to see her house where she was, where her house was in Chicago. But if you don't know who she is, man, she's incredible. She basically was a journalist, investigative journalism in the South. She, you know, she documented a lot about the lynchings that were going on there. She also was elected the secretary of the Colored Press in 1869. I mean, she was like one of those people, and I see the spirit of her and a lot of young people that I work with that, you know, highlight or tell us about what was going on in our society now. And I like to think somehow some of that is in the tradition of Ida B. Wells. And she's one of those people that we got to talk about. We just got to talk about. But she helped bring international attention to the horrors of slavery in the South with her investigative journalism. That's what she was known for. And so when you look up now and you see Black women still out there fighting, I always think in the ways that they fight, because we don't all fight the same way. Some of us are not marching. Some of us is making sure families are safe. Some of us is making sure that, you know, our communities are well. All of that is a part of the fight. You know what I mean? And so here in that time, lynching was really big, and she was out there bringing international attention to lynching. So we cannot forget her at all. We just cannot forget her at all. We're going to go to Phyllis Wheatley. And the reason why I'm kind of focusing on some of these people who are from like 1700, 1800, I think sometimes we just think we just showed up now and being so brave. But some of us, a lot of us really, basically, our ancestors were very brave because it was in a time where we didn't have a lot of rights the way we have rights now. You know, and so I never, ever make the mistake of feeling like what I'm going through now is worse than what they went through. I just never do that. I was taught that, and I believe this to be true, that my absolute worst day is better than my ancestors' best day. So, because I can always go to bed, get up tomorrow, do it again. I can always, you know, figure out what I'm going to do next. I can always have time to feel vulnerable and cry. I always have time to be mad and whatever. But I can always have another plan to make it out of there. So I had to absolutely pick her because it was just not a easy time for a woman like this. So this is Phyllis Wheatley. Sorry, y'all. 1753 to 1784. And yes, ma'am. Okay. So hold on, family. Give me just a minute. I know. Yeah, it's just me. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, family. That's it. I may have to okay you over here. Okay, go back to YouTube again, see if it lets you in there. Thank you for telling me. You're right on the money. All right, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm training somebody, so it's just, but I'm grateful to have a person to train to learn this stuff. I think it is so important to let you in. Okay. No, it's because you're in there. You got to sign yourself out. Because see, I'm on pause. I'll click right here. Okay. I'll do it again. Capital B, beloved. Number 4. And me, capital M. Okay, that should take you over there. And it should give me a notice. Okay, family, sorry about that. So it should let you in now. Try it now. Okay, family. So we getting it in. We getting it in. Thank y'all for rolling with it. So we have Phyllis Wheatley. And so even though people say that, this is what I have come to learn. All of us did not grow up in Black culture the way we're not all having the same Black cultural experience. Let me just start by saying that. But more importantly, like I know Black people with the same age, sometimes they're older than me, they did not grow up with the Black national anthem. I know Black people that where they were living, they was not having that experience. There was a lot of Black folks who grew up who did not, necessarily their experience was not like mine. to be very honest with you. And it's not in a bad way. It just was not like mine. I think sometimes when we are talking about the Black experience, and I sometimes do this myself, sometimes I think people are having the same experience that I'm having, but they're really not. And I mean, and that's okay. But I'm so grateful that I grew up. My earlier part of my life was in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, North Philly. And I grew up when Black folks were, coming more into their African selves and their mindsets, where people started to embrace their hair and their skin color, and Black is beautiful. And I remember that time very vividly. And that really did shape me as a human being growing up. So I got to know who a lot of these people were, because, they were teaching us all that. I grew up listening to that Stevie Wonder album when, that song Was a Black Man, learning about history and culture. I grew up in Black exploitation. So I got a chance to see Black people on the screen, you know what I mean? And so I never make the assumption. So when I hear people say, they always teaching the same 4 people, that could be true, but some people didn't even get Malcolm X. Some people didn't, they may have gotten Dr. King, but they probably got the generic part of Dr. King. They didn't really know, who he really was, the full extent of who he was, So, and bringing y'all these women this morning, this is something you should think about. Right now, we're on a quarantine still. If you're teaching your kids at home, you probably should, there's a bunch of information online. Look up 10 Black women or 10 Black men, look them up. But we should be sharing this information with our children, because it really is our job. It is our job to do this. There's no one else's job to do this. I'm not expecting your teachers to do it. That is your job. And I'm so grateful that I grew up in a community and with people who understood that. And so they really impacted me in terms of my own responsibility. So we're going to look at Sister Phyllis Wheatley. And she basically was a former enslaved person who was kidnapped from West Africa and brought to America. She was brought by a Boston family and became their personal servant. Now, look at this, sister. This is a painting, of course, rendition, but look at her. Now, someone kidnaps you from your homeland, brings you all the way across the water, and then you have to be a slave or enslaved person to a family. But through all of that, with the aid of the family, I don't know if it's the family, the Boston family, she learned to read and eventually became one of the first women to publish a book of poetry in 1773. So when you think about this, now I get the fact that, I think we have to be very careful when we tell these stories. What do you mean, Londa? What do you mean? Because when you purchase a people and then you teach them maybe how to read or write or whatever, it doesn't make the family any nobler. You see what I'm saying? Because the fact that they were buying people, when you're buying a person, give thanks that she had a way of having an outlet for expression, taking that talent and learning and putting it to use. But I just felt like when I think about the horrors of slavery, there's no way to dress it up. There's no way to dress it up. So we give thanks for our dear sister because, she taught herself, how to read. And to me, that's major. That's super. That's major. The next person is Flo Kennedy. Flo Kennedy, born in 1916, and died in 2000. She lived a pretty long time. Kennedy was the founding member of the National Organization of Women and one of the first Black women lawyers to graduate from Columbia Law School. Stop right there. Okay, so when I see the National Organization of Women, I'm not going to front, I always see a bunch of white women. I'm not going to lie. And then I will see some Black women too. We in everything, honestly. But when you hear about it, the face of it is usually white women, But I did not know that she was one of the founding members, was a Black woman, Flo Kennedy, okay? But also she was a lawyer and graduated from Columbia Law School. She helped to found the Feminist Party in 1971, a Black woman. See, I think of feminists, I think of white women. I'm just saying, which later became the representative Shirley Chisholm for president. So she basically later nominated Representative Shirley Chisholm for president. So not only was she with the National Women Organization of Women and was a lawyer and graduated from Columbia Law School, she helped to found the Feminist Party, but she also nominated our dear sister Shirley Chisholm for president. Now, we started off with Shirley Chisholm. That is something, see, all of these linkages. And so now when I look at our community, And not all of us, y'all, because I think sometimes black folks are not a monolith. I say that all the time. People joke about it, but it's the truth. Not all of us want the same things. Not all of us are going to the same place. Let's just be honest. But if we're going to talk about freedom and us getting things together, at some point we have to see where we connect at and work that link. But we can not going to make everybody be like this. Like, that's not happening. But if we have like where we touch fingers and where we can lock at sometimes, we should work from there, because here this sister is Flo Kennedy. And it seems like every Flo I know is bad. I think about Dr. Flo. You know, I mean, come on. Like, them Flows is something else. So, Sister Sojourner Truth, born in 1797, and in 1883, she became an ancestor. So, when I was a kid, I used to get her mixed up with Harriet Tubman when I was a kid. But she was born Isabella, this is Berman Free. She escaped slavery with her infant daughter and changed her name to Sojourner Truth. So hold on, family. This dear queen escaped slavery with her infant daughter. Okay? She was best known for her speech in Ohio Women's Rights Convention in 1851 entitled, Ain't I a Woman? Now, hold on, family. We should know who she is. We have the Sojourner Truth Museum here in Sacramento you should be checking out. You know, I'm pretty sure they have a lot of stuff for her. But here's a woman, sound like black woman I know today, you know, in a different kind of way. But not only did she escape slavery, but she did it with her infant daughter. Think about that. So that's our dear sister, Sojourner Truth. Then one of my absolute favorites is Fannie Lou Hamer, born in 1917, died in 1977. Let me just say this. I worked in Rootville, Mississippi. I worked in Sharkey County. And let me tell you, there's some bad sisters down there, queen mothers down there. And that's where she is from. She's a powerful woman. I feel like I can relate to her so much. And just in terms of like her tenacity, her dignity, the way she stood up for herself. You know what I mean? Here she is. And Fannie Lou Hamer was a civil rights activist and organizer of the Student Nonviolent Coordinated Committee, Fannie Lou Hamer. She helped blacks register to vote and co-founded the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. Now, hold on, family. Now, this is deep because right now we're talking about voting. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. This is my truth. I don't care how you vote because I'm not a Democrat, but I'm not a Republican. I vote my conscience. I don't vote down the party ticket. Nobody can scare me into voting however they think is going to be best for them and maybe not best for me. Let me say that again. You can never scare me on voting for what's best for you because it may not be best for me. Right? However, at least you vote. And when you look at someone like Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, who went through a lot, family, not just holding signs and talking shit, you know, and she was beaten before. You know what I mean? So she went through a lot of stuff. And I think sometimes, you know, it sometimes pains me when we try to compare ourselves to the past when none of us have ever gotten our ass whooping like that in the cell. You know, if we're standing for what we believe in. So Sister Fannie Lou Hamer is one of those sisters that you just cannot deny who she is. You just really can't. It's not possible. And I'm saying her name, but now I got to say this brother name that I actually learned about this week because when I went to go visit my grandmothers, one of them is buried in a section that's named for him, and it's called Cato. This brother name is Octavius Valentine Cato. Because we talked about voting and Fannie Lou Hamer, immediately his brother came to mind. He was born in 1839. He died in 1871. So this brother did all kinds of stuff. He fought in the Civil War. He was a patriotic American. You know, he worked at the Institute for, this is what got me. He worked at the, I'm trying to get this right, the Franklin Institute and the Union League Association. He was the headmaster at the Institute for Colored Youth, which later became Cheney University. Now I'm talking about Cato, but I'm going to connect him to Fannie Lou Hamer in terms of voting and the right to vote. But what this guy is really famous for, he served in Pennsylvania National Guard as a major in the Union Army during the Civil War. This guy. But this dear brother, Cato, Octavius Cato, he was assassinated on election day, October the 10th, 1871, in front of a polling place on the 700 block of South Avenue in South Philadelphia. Now, here's a black man. I don't have his picture. When we said Fannie Lou Hamer, immediately, because I think we got to start connecting these dots, it made me think of Octavius Valentine Cato, who was one of those brothers who was out there helping us to vote, register to vote, because he thought that voting would really help impact the black community. And he was assassinated on election day in front of a polling place. So don't tell me about register to vote. I don't believe in voting or whatever it is. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm not. I'm just not. Because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I think we do better under pressure, but that's just London. However, I think out of the respect, because we know, especially you must vote locally, especially locally, you must vote. And so, you know, when I think of Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, I think about Cato. Got to. I think about all of those people who stood up and fought and bled and died for us just to have. I'm not telling you who to vote for, because I got to keep saying that. But I also know that there's power in there if you do it right. And if these people are fighting for us, Fannie Lou Hamer, Cato, so many nameless people, then what is our excuse as we stand here in 2020 complaining about our condition? Some of us are. So salute to Sister Fannie Lou Hamer. I just think that she's incredible. Man, salute Sister Fannie Lou Hamer. Gwendolyn Brooks. My mom really loved Gwendolyn Brooks. She was born in 1917, died in 2000. Wow, she's been for a long time. Give thanks. Who is she? She was a poet. The first African-American to win a Pulitzer Prize in 1949. The book entitled Annie Allen. So she was a poet. You know, we always have these great poets. I like Sonia Sanchez, like, what's the other one who passed away a couple of years ago? Maya Angelou. Poetry is so powerful. Poetry is so powerful, family. You know, it's a way of having expression that we probably could never put into words. They have a way of putting things into words, and we should be very grateful for that. Very grateful. So Gwendolyn Brooks is one of those people that you just cannot, like, forget about. You just can't, family. You just can't. The next sister is Bessie Coleman. And I remember seeing her pictures growing up. Dear Sister Lisa Davis says, if voting wasn't a big deal, why they wouldn't be working so hard for us to keep it from doing it? Right on, sis. I'm sorry. I'm like you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think that you could be disappointed. Excuse me, family. Sorry. I think you could be disappointed in how the vote goes or how some things goes. I get that, because in life you have disappointments, you have joys. But I feel like there's something so important about having that as a right to do. You know what I mean? And particularly and most importantly for me, locally. See, what I come to learn is that when people talk about, could you roll back up to Fannie Lou Hamer? Because I'm on voting again. I'm sorry. And I'm going to get to Bessie Coleman. But this is what I learned in my travels. When I hear people talk about states' rights and things like that, for some Black people, that goes over the head like this. But I started to think, like, why do I see certain groups of people, y'all know what I'm talking about, so hard on those state rights? Like, why is it that people will go way up to Montana and be like, don't y'all come in here? You know, talking about the government. And then for Black people, we'll be voting nationally, which is important too. But then locally, our stuff is messed up. And everybody else locally is doing great, but Black people are struggling. Like locally, people have their own sections of the city locally. So no matter who the president is or who, whatever, they still locally can control their environment. And I think sometimes as Black folks, we got to be able to be just as diverse in terms of looking at things locally when it comes to voting, and nationally, of course. But what I've always learned, big wig people have never helped small people. Small people have always helped each other. You know what I mean? Because by the time it trickles down, we barely see any of it. But we'll be celebrating the people at the top, even though they give us nothing. So we have to have a different way of doing politics. But I always say voting. You must vote. And I don't want to hear, don't be guilting me. Shut up. Because when some stuff go wrong, then you coming to me. But you didn't vote. Please miss me with all that. Please. Just miss me altogether. Miss me. So take me down to Betsy Coleman. Sorry, y'all. I had to put this, because I agree with you, sis, because they fighting real hard for us not to be able to have that vote. I mean, they are really fighting hard. But my thing is, are we fighting just as hard to make sure that we can have the vote? You know, and I feel like we better have a plan. No matter who gets in there, we better have a plan, or we gonna be in trouble. Right? Also, questions. Yes, she was a very great poet. So, Betsy Coleman, born in 1892, died in 1926. That's the same year my grandmother was born. Betsy Coleman became the first Black woman to earn a pilot's license and the first Black woman to stage a public flight in the United States. Hold on, family. Hold on. First Black woman to get a pilot's license. I wonder how many Black women have a pilot's license. Even today. You know, I ain't talking about how many of us fly in the plane. No, how many of us have a pilot's license? And then she became the first Black woman to stage a public flight in the United States. She specialized in stunt flying and parachuting and remains a pioneer for women in aviation. I remember always seeing her growing up. Always. You know, because how many of us is still, you know, when I see a Black woman pilot, which I don't think I've ever seen one yet in person, because I fly a lot. But I always think to myself, wow, I have never, ever seen this person. Ever. All right, let's get to this next sister. And she's still living, at least according when they wrote this article. Diane Nash, born in 1938. Okay, 1938. And she's presently still alive, at least when this article was written. Nash is the founding member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. She was instrumental in organizing the Freedom Rides. Now, if you don't know what Freedom Rides are, again, y'all, we got this internet. You should be looking this stuff up. There's no reason today for us not to understand what the word means. You know, you could always look it up and then ask for more clarification. You know, she helped to segregate interstate buses in the South. She also planned the Selma voting rights movement in response to the Birmingham 16th Street church bombing that killed 4 young girls. Now, y'all, hold on. So the sister was a founding member of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, okay, which I think, no, I'm not going to say this, I'm not really sure. She was instrumental in the Freedom Rides when they went into the South and their support down there, the Freedom Rides, which helped to segregate the interstate busing in the South. So they definitely did work in the South. But she also helped to plan the Selma voting rights movement. And look, all this stuff, I'm on my third hand, by the way. And then, of course, that was in response to the bombing. So what she did is that she did something locally to inspire the people, to get the people up, That's what this sister did, y'all. And that was in response to that church, 16th Street church that was bombed and killed those 4 little girls. Ain't that something? When I talked about us all somehow being connected, I remember reading something, or maybe I seen something where Condoleezza Rice knew those girls. So somewhere along the line, or even if it's just by the fingertips, somehow we're always connected, always. So salute up to dear sister Diane, who did her part. I always say it's always about doing your part. Next queen I'm to share with you is Zora Neale Hurston. Now, I really love Zora Neale Hurston. I really love her. Why? Why you love her, bro? Man, I mean, she's an awesome writer, awesome documenter of African American culture and folklore. She was born in 1891 and died in 1960. She was a part of the Harlem Renaissance. I mean, Hurston was a anthropologist. I can't even say his word. Anthropologist. Say it again. anthropologist. I think I put the words in there. Thank you, dear sister. And author of the Harlem Renaissance. Though she did not receive much recognition for her work while she was alive, her works of fiction, especially Their Eyes Are Watching God, became a staple in American culture. So this sister also, too, in her earlier career, went through the South, documenting what's called African American folklore. And a lot of people don't know that. When she documented with Hopping John, and she documented stories. One of my favorite stories that I remember her documenting was about how man and woman became. She said in the beginning of time, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this because, we got so much time, that in the beginning of time, there was man and woman and they were both equal. And one day the man got this idea where he went up to God and asked God to give him more strength than the woman. And God, just like the universe, doesn't ask questions why you want it, just gave it to him. He went back down to earth and started acting kind of stupid with his power. So the woman got mad and was sitting on the side kind of pouting about it, and the devil popped up. And the devil asked her what was wrong, and she explained it to her. And the devil said, well, look, if you go up to God and ask for these 3 keys, you bring those 3 keys back down, I could tell you what to do with those 3 keys, and you'll get even with man. No problem. The woman goes up to God, asks for the 3 keys. He said, no problem. Of course, it's the universe. It doesn't ask questions why. Gave her the 3 keys. She got back down to earth, and the devil popped up and gave her instruction. So when the man came home, and he was tired from a long day's work, so he went to get some food to eat, and the kitchen was locked. The woman had not been cooking. Then he went on to the room. Okay, I guess I'll lay down. I had no food to eat. And when he went to go lay down, he couldn't get in the bedroom. So the bedroom was locked. So he couldn't get no rest or no comfort, which means he could not. That was the second thing. And then the third thing is that when he did that, he couldn't make no generations. He couldn't have any kids and nothing like that. The woman does all of that. So he got mad. He went back up to God, and God asked God, why did you give her the power of these 3 things? And God said, because she asked the same way you asked for more strength. So he turned around and started pouting to walk back down to earth. And God told man, look, take these chocolates and these flowers and be very careful with how you use your strength, your energy. So the moral to the story is, first of all, that both so-called good and evil, bad or good or whatever, still balances out everything. And you have to be very careful to how you use your gifts, that you may have more than someone else's. And when I share that story in my classes, the young people love it. And I said, that's folklore. And Black Americans have a lot of folklore because we created it at the time. So Zora Neale Hurston was famous for going into the South and documenting those stories. So, all right, y'all, let's go on down this thing. Let me see who I'm going to next. I'm going to touch on Hattie McDaniel. Just go down one. So Sister Hattie McDaniel. Why did I put Hattie McDaniel on here? I don't know why they put it on here. But I think her image today is just as important as it was back in the 40s and 50s when she was alive. This is Hattie McDaniel. She was born in 1893 and died in 1952. And a lot of y'all may know her from Gone with the Wind. She was like the maid, or I guess to Scarlett or whatever her name was. In the film. And so she was an actress. She appeared in more than 300 films and was the first African American to win an Oscar in 1940. She also starred in the CBS radio show Beulah. It's a show called Beulah. And so I think she worked in like the 30s, 40s, something like that. She's over 300 films is a lot. But when I look at her, here's a physically Black woman. Here is a woman who is, as they would say, old school, big bone or heavy set. And so when you look at most of those roles, she played a maid. And when you look at Black cinema today, we still typecast people who look like her just like this. Not talking about white people. I'm talking about Black people. I've never seen I like Tyler Perry's a good person. I'm not against Tyler Perry. But I just know when I see heavy set Black women, they would never be the love interest. They would never be the center in terms of seeing her as a beautiful woman like you would do the person on the opposite end of the spectrum. So when I look at Sister Hattie McDaniel, a lot of things come to mind. The first thing that come to mind is that when she won that Oscar that they so proudly document her for, when you first seen it, and Whoopi Goldberg shared this on some kind of show. I can't remember the show, but it moved me so, because I think she had got an Oscar years later, that same Oscar. And she dedicated to Hattie McDaniel. And what she said was, When they first showed it, you see her crying, accepting this Oscar, and it just looks really beautiful. Like, oh my God, she's getting this Oscar. Oh my God. But what we all didn't know is that she was in an empty studio accepting that award. She didn't even get to be in front of her peers. And so we don't know if she was crying because she won the Oscar, or was she crying because I still can't get no respect for my craft, even though most of the things she played in, she was a maid. And I think that's the complexity that Black Americans are faced with right now. You know, why we are just as color struck as supremacy when it comes to darker hued people and people who are have more meat on their bones, or big bone, that are thick, or whatever the hell we want to call it today. But we still treat people like the way Hattie McDaniel was treated in Black cinema and Black theater. You know, it made me think one time when I heard Whoopi Goldberg say, I had to create movies where I was beautiful in the movie, because Black people weren't going to create nothing where I was beautiful. I think about Sister Fannie Lou Hamer. So when I hear people sometimes talk about, well, I don't like that she did it, shut up, because you don't walk in her shoes. Nobody's going to take abuse from Black people and act like it's moving the movement forward. No, it breaks people's spirits is what it does. Just so you can think we're together. That's shameful. So I always salute Hattie McDaniel, because she reminds me of the struggle that we still got going on. We are still in the midst of this struggle. We're still there, family. We're still there. So I always salute Sister Hattie McDaniel. All right, y'all, we moving on to Sister Daisy Bates. Daisy Bates, born in 1914, died in 1999. This dear sister here, what did she do? Why are we looking at Daisy Bates? A civil rights activist and journalist, Bates documented the fight to end segregation in Arkansas. I know a lot of people that's from Arkansas, a lot. Along with her husband, she ran a weekly Black newspaper and became the president of the Arkansas chapter of the NAACP. Again, media, the importance, just like Ida B. Wells, media, documenting stuff, so important, y'all. Documenting stuff. We cannot let the Black press die, but even those of us who do media, the journalism by the internet, it is our job to keep documenting. It's our job, y'all. And this sister, it must not have been easy. I've been through Arkansas a few times, you know, so the fact that she was documenting that, you know, in a time where it just wasn't, you know, it's not like now we doing reality TV shows and talk about who slept with who or whatever, and we act like that's journalism. That's really embarrassing and kind of shameful. But I mean, you know, this is when they did it with purpose, because it was about moving us along so that we would have more opportunities and people also to know what's going on. There's nothing sadder than when people leave the planet and nobody marks that they left. It's like they never, ever existed, like they never came to the planet. So I always give thanks for the Black press through the years, through the decades, through the centuries. You know, because some things date all the way back to 1700 that I've seen, especially along that eastern seaboard. Next, we have Dr. Mae Jemison. Born in 1956, and she is still alive, and she's just as beautiful now as she is in this picture in her NASA suit. Okay, so who is she, y'all? She was the first Black woman to be admitted into the, astrology? No. Oh my God, I had this word. Say it. No, don't go for it, because people are watching that, so you have to leave that up here. That's okay. Astronaut, got it. My brain went froze. I'm sorry. Let me read this over, y'all. She was the first Black woman to be admitted into the astronaut training program and fly into space in 1987. Jemison also developed and participated in the research project on hepatitis B vaccine and rabies. Now, I did not know that she was a part of the research with hepatitis B vaccine and rabies. I did not know that at all. I don't know why I couldn't say astronaut, but it was like boop. But this is a sister I grew up seeing her as well. We got to know who these people are, y'all, and should be very proud. We have a Black woman in outer space. But not just that. Think about hepatitis B and how major that is in our community right now, particularly hepatitis B. And here's a sister that was a part of the research project on that. We should be very proud of her. Salute to that dear sister. Sister Ella Baker, Queen Mother Ella Baker, born in 1903, died in 1986. Well, I think I was like in the ninth grade or something at that time. Beautiful sister. Who is she? Baker was the national director of the NAACP. She also worked with the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolent Coordinator Committee. As one of the leading figures in the civil rights movement, Baker is known for her leadership style, which helped develop other skills to become the leader in fighting for a better future. Now, y'all, look at this queen. And there's the Ella Baker Freedom Center, I think, in San Francisco. So, you know, this sister was very powerful. Now we're in the era everybody's an activist, but I don't wonder how many people know who Ella Baker is and what she really contribute. And if we look, I don't know, 50 years from now, will they be talking about your leadership style? Will they be talking about, you know, what you really did to fight for a better future? Because here's the thing, she wasn't just fighting for right in the now. She was fighting for days and people she was never going to meet or see. You feel me? So salute up to Ella Baker. We could not do this countdown and not have her up in it. For real, for real. Madam C.J. Walker, born in 1867, died in 1919. That was like the year before, the 1919, year before my great-great-grandmother died. Wow. Okay, so who is she? Now, I know we had the film come out and all that great stuff. The film, you know, I just wish we would tell people stories in its totality without trying to act like it's right now. So Madam C.J. Walker became one of the first female self-made millionaires in the world when she inventing a line of hair care products, especially for African Americans in 1905. She traveled around the country to promote her products and gave hair care demonstration. She eventually found the Madam C.J. Walker Laboratories to manufacture cosmetics and train beauticians. Family, this is her. So no matter what you think about people putting perms and stuff in their hair, because the black hair care industry is a billion, if not $1 trillion industry, and very few of us are making money off of that. But I also think what she was trying to do is to make black women feel beautiful. And some of that has a lot to do with getting your hair done. I know, this is for me personally, Ro. When I first get my hair braided or whatever, I feel like $1 million. I love when I get my hair done. You know, so I can't imagine, you know, back in the day, if you worked really hard and you really couldn't get your hair done. Like I can't even imagine what that must have been like. But also in looking at her pictures, family, she also had definitely those beautiful, pure blood looking African features. And I know she lived in the world of colorism, the same world we living in right now with black people. And we can only imagine how she really felt about herself. But I still give salute to her because she was trying to help make black women feel beautiful about themselves. Next person, one of my personal favorites, Josephine Baker, born in 1906, died in 1975. And this is one person that if I had a wish to interview somebody from history and it's not my own mama, it would be her, because I've just always been so fascinated by who she was and how she lived her life. After getting her start in New York, Josephine Baker found fame and fortune when she moved to Paris in 1920 to become one of Europe's most beloved performers, entertaining her audiences with enticing dance moves and vocals. During World War II, she worked with the French Resistance, smuggling messages, hiding in her sheet music and underwear. Baker frequently returned to the United States during the civil rights movement efforts. She was eventually a speaker at the 1962 March on Washington, family. So here's the other part. This person's doing a similar, they're doing a great job. But Josephine Baker also had the Rainbow Coalition that when she, in her latter years, adopted children from all over the place, creating the Rainbow Tribe. She also, had her moments where she, I think sometimes people's beginning will help you to understand why they do the work that they do. And so I know she grew up during the race riots in St. Louis in the late 1906. No, it's maybe 1910 or something like that. I can't remember, which totally burnt some brains. It totally impacted who she became and how she seen the world. And I think sometimes when we talk about the greatness of who we are as women, sometimes we kind of leave out the fact that there are these life-changing moments in your life that impacts how you move in the world for the rest of your life. And Josephine Baker really helped me to understand that. Like when she went off to Europe, because she was around the time when people were performing, she performed in blackface. And she was black. So, she was in that time when people didn't think much of black folks in entertainment. You know what I mean? But then she also went along and, went to Europe and found freedom of her own there and acceptance. And then she had to still deal with racism when she came back to the United States. And every time I cross that Walt Whitman Bridge, I think of Josephine Baker and how when she tried to stand up for herself in the 1940s, he talked about her like a dog. You know what I mean? And black folks, it's just all of these, connectings, even on the negative side. Because people talk about Walt Whitman like he was this great journalist, but the man was a straight up goddamn racist. And he has a whole bridge named for him. So anyway, I think about Sister Josephine Baker, and then through it all, she basically went broke trying to take care of her rainbow tribe, because she really believed that if children are brought up together and having respect for each other and being each other's sister or brother, maybe they would not see color. And that was her whole purpose of doing that rainbow tribe that she tried to pull together. So I always going to salute her. To me, she was just not an entertainer or a superstar or whatever. She was a woman who still was in the fight, but on a different level. So I always salute Josephine Baker. Hold on, before we get to this, the last person I think I'm gonna do, because this thing is heckin' long, I think I'm gonna end with Mahalia Jackson, because I really love Mahalia Jackson. My grandmamas love Mahalia Jackson. And I don't know about y'all, every time I see that Imitation of Life, and she sing at the end, thou shall be done, I hear that, be like, oh my God. But voice angelic, but deep and rooted. Her voice to me was very rooted. This is Mahalia Jackson, born in 1911, died in 1972. Mahalia Jackson was the queen of gospel. Is one known as one of the greatest musicians in American history. Jackson sang at the 1963 March on Washington. So mind you, they had Josephine Baker there and Mahalia Jackson at the March on Washington. Right before MLK spoke, I Have a Dream speech. While giving his speech, Jackson interjected with, tell him about the dream, Martin. So you could hear her in the back and say, tell him about the dream. Go ahead. Jackson's words led King to improv, and later the improv that into part of his speech. So, okay, look, y'all, this is Mahalia Jackson. It's a lot of other women on this list that I did not share. You could always go, you can put that link up. You can always go and go to this link for the 28 queens of Black history that we all deserve to know more about. If you're homeschooling your kids, your grandkids, kids, your adult kids, grown kids, they should know who these 28 women are. Y'all, it was a lot. It's always a pleasure to share information. I'm always so grateful. Thank you. I'm always so grateful. I hope that you learned a lot today. I know I did. I'm going to show you this. So for me, this is my great-great-grandmother. Her name was Winnie Parks. She was born in 1818 or 1817, and she died in 1920. So it is so important to know who your ancestors are. She made the journey along with her daughter from Fairfax County, Virginia, to where she was enslaved at, to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in the early, in like 1899 or something like that. She came up, like a lot of people who were leaving the South after slavery, and been here ever since. Like I know I could go right to where we were from, at least in Philadelphia, and of course in Virginia. But also she is buried in what is known as the Eden Cemetery. If you don't know much about the Eden Cemetery, you should. It is a historical landmark. It is where Black people are buried in Pennsylvania, and there was a whole lot of fighting going on so that Black folks could be buried in dignity. So it's a national treasure. And it's like history when you walk through that place, through that cemetery. And my great-grandmother, Winnie, my great-grandmother, Georgiana, my grandmother, Alice, are all buried there, and they're in great company. So I just felt like today I had to salute great women today that we need to know about. And with that, family, I hope that y'all would have a great day. I'll be back at noon with Sister Sequestra Satawi, and she will be talking about great books from Voices from Rise Women. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall see you all next week. Dana will be back, and I'll definitely see you then. All right, family. We're about to get this in. It's time to get up out of here.